Now, the former Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, Stephen Yates, along with James Zogby, President at the Arab American Institute. James, let me start with you. So it took a few days. He's been taking a lot of heat for that comment about busing Arabs, getting his base to go out and vote. Do you think his apology was sincere? Is it going to be accepted by the Israeli Arabs?
Actually, they don't accept it, and they have every reason not to accept it. The modus operandi of this man is when pressured, he'll say what he needs to say to get out from under the rock that he put himself under. But the fact is that Netanyahu is Netanyahu, a known commodity, and he has been pursuing racist policies his entire political career, even before he became prime minister back in the 90s. They know him, they know how he operates, and they saw the Jewish state bill that he was proposing in the last Knesset that actually brought his government down, that was based on a bill establishing Jewish supremacy and the subordination of the Arab population codified as a second-class citizenry in housing, in education, in so many social services. They receive a scant amount of government funding and are deprived as a result of that. And so the issue is they don't believe him. And as Elise said, actions speak louder than words, and the actions have actually been quite deplorable.
Deplorable is the word you use. Stephen, you actually don't think Netanyahu's comment on busing Arabs was racist?
I don't, because he was basically stating a fact. There was an active effort to increase Arab-Israeli participation in the election, and it worked. Whether it's racist to target an ethnicity within a country and increase their participation is something for others to address. But what really matters is the vote count, and Bibi's party came out on top. He has to form a coalition government, and people have to figure out where they're going to go from here. And in terms of actions speaking louder than words, there are a lot of actions in the security environment that don't speak well of the intentions of the other side seeking peace. And so there's a lot of blame to go around in this. The question is there really a desire, an ability to deliver on both sides of this equation?
13 members of the Knesset are now going to be from the Arab bloc. I don't think you can speak about their commitment or not commitment to peace. We've polled that bloc, and Arabs in Israel are, in fact, the most moderate of the constituency in the entire country, and they are treated like second-class citizens. No, they are second-class citizens in that state. I've been studying them for 4 decades now. I've seen them go from total exclusion to fight for where they are today, where they at least have a party that can operate in their name, but they're still treated quite poorly. They're treated like blacks under Jim Crow here in the United States.
So there's this issue of racism, okay? There's also the issue of 2 states, right? There were 2 things that the Prime Minister said that he's now taken back. On the 2-state issue, first he said, no way, that is never going to happen while he was in office. That was on the final day of the campaign. And a couple days later, after the Obama administration, frankly, really lost it over this, he said, actually, I do want 2 states. I've always wanted 2 states. Again, James, to you, do you believe him? Does he want 2 states or not? I mean, because actually, if he has 1 state, he's kind of stuck with what you're talking about, actually, which is over time, it'll have to be racist policy if you want a Jewish state.
Well, it's a racist policy today, but let's talk about the 2 states. This guy was elected in 1996 on a platform of ending the peace process, the Oslo process, and then in 2001, before supporters in Israel, he said, you know, during my time, I ended the peace process, and he actually did. He took steps along the way that made it increasingly impossible for 2 states to come into existence and delegitimized the Palestinian leadership and put them in the position where they are today, a fragmented polity. In the time he's been in office in the recent era, again, he rewards Hamas with 1,000 prisoners and denies Abu Mazen 22 prisoners in order to keep the peace process going. This president, President
of course,
Obama,
the leader of the PLO,
understands that Netanyahu has never really wanted peace. He's tried to play with him, he's tried to move him, he's tried to push him forward, but I think that his electioneering this time really went over the top, and America has to make a choice. If we want peace, it's not going to come with Benjamin Netanyahu in office because he has no interest in it at all. He's playing for time and wants to actually further entrench Israel into the West Bank to make it impossible for 2 states ever to come into being.
So, Stephen, do you believe Netanyahu? Which Netanyahu? Let's just put it this way. Which Netanyahu do you believe? The 1-state Netanyahu or the 2-state Netanyahu?
I believe that Netanyahu says that his first priority is security of the Israeli state. and whether it's the Iran negotiations or negotiations with the Palestinian authorities, he's basically laying out a narrative that I think a lot of Americans are going to sympathize with. Can you make peace with a state that includes elements that call for your elimination? And when it comes to the Palestinian Authority, its ties to Hamas are pretty clear. How can you have a two-state solution in peace with a government that has within it a credo that says that they want to have a one-state solution?
And James, there is a point to that, right? I mean, they do have a deal with Hamas. When I asked the ambassador from the PLO to the U.S. about that last week, his answer to me was a little bit short, I thought. It was, well, we're not technically a part of Hamas. I mean, when you're relying on the word technically as your cover, that's not great.
They are not. The peace negotiator is Abu Mazen and is the Palestinian Authority. That is the peace negotiator. And let me make a point clear. Look at who is in Netanyahu's government. Naftali Bennett, who said over his dead body there would be two states, and said he described Palestinians as like a piece of shrapnel in your butt, and he said, well, you have to live with it because it's worse to operate and get it out. We're going to be one state, that's it. And then he's also got Avigdor Lieberman in his government, again, somebody who has been very clear about his absolute rejection of full self-determination for Palestinians. So, you know, look, it's the pot calling the kettle black. Netanyahu has done everything he can to make it impossible for there to be a state, including massive expansion of settlements into Palestinian areas that are actually quite a problem that everyone knows is a problem, and yet he's the one saying, I don't trust my opponents.
All right. Well, thanks very much to both of you for the conversation that will keep going on and on, I know. Appreciate both of your time tonight. Out front.